She gave him 10 years of her life. 10 years of silence, sacrifice, and scars that no one could see. But one day, without warning, he told her to leave as if she were nothing. Homeless, heartbroken, and with a child by her side, she had nowhere to go until a kind stranger stopped his car and everything began to change. This is the story of Aisha, a woman betrayed, broken, and cast aside, who rose from the ashes with courage, found healing in unexpected love, and became a voice for every woman who's ever been told she wasn't enough. Stay with us, you won't forget this journey. It was the third time that week Aisha had dropped her husband's lunch at his office without so much as a thank you. She stood quietly at the door waiting for him to notice her. He didn't. He was too busy laughing with his female colleague, a woman he'd once sworn was just a friend. Aisha didn't complain. She never did. After all, in her mother's words, a woman must learn to endure. Marriage is not sweet every day. For 10 years, she had endured. She bore the insults, the gaslighting, the cheating, and the emotional starvation. Her husband, Femi, used to be charming in public, the kind of man who could make anyone believe he was a loving, supportive spouse. But behind closed doors, Aisha became invisible. Her dreams of being a tailor with her own boutique were mocked. Who would wear your clothes, he'd scoff. At 34, she had nothing to show for her life except a 9-year-old daughter, Zara, and a heart full of silent wounds. That Friday evening, as she served his dinner, he told her he wanted her out of the house by Sunday. No reason. No warning. Just like that. I'm done. You're not useful to me anymore, he said coldly, not even looking up from his phone. Femi, please, where will I go with Zara? Her voice quivered. That's your problem. My lawyer will send you something. Just leave. The neighbors watched silently as she dragged 2 bags down the compound steps. No one offered help. In her community, a woman leaving her marriage was seen as a failure, no matter the reason. Her daughter held her hand tightly, confused and afraid. That night, they slept on a wooden bench outside a locked shop in Ajij. The mosquitoes feasted on them. Aisha's tears came silently, soaking into her scarf. Her phone was dead. She had just 600 Nigerian nairas in her purse. By dawn, her pride had vanished. She was ready to beg. But beg who? It was then, just as the sun began to rise, that a man in his mid-40s stopped his car in front of them. He stepped out, holding a cup of steaming coffee, and looked at them with genuine concern. Madam, are you all right? She didn't answer immediately. She was too ashamed to speak. But he didn't press. Instead, he walked to his car, returned with a flask of warm tea and 2 meat pies. Eat fast. Then you can tell me your story. Or not. I'm not here to judge. His name was Dr. Colonel, the widower, quiet and kind. He didn't ask for details. He didn't pretend to be a savior. But that morning, in a world that had spat her out, he was the first human who made Aisha feel seen. And that, unknowingly, was the start of a new chapter, not just of survival, but of something far deeper. Aisha sat at the edge of the guest bed in Dr. Colonel's modest home, watching Zara sleep peacefully for the first time in days. The room was simple, cream-colored curtains swaying gently in the morning breeze, the scent of lemon disinfectant lingering in the air, but to her, it felt like a palace. She hadn't meant to stay. She'd just wanted a warm drink, a safe place to think. But when Colonel noticed how pale Zara looked, he offered to call a nurse. He'd spoken gently, respectfully, like someone who truly saw her pain. I'm not asking for anything, he said when she hesitated. Just rest. When you're ready to leave, you'll leave. It took Aisha a week to stop flinching when someone knocked on the door. A month before she started smiling again. 2 months before she allowed herself to laugh. In that time, a colonel introduced her to his late wife's sewing machine, still covered in a white cloth like a relic. She was a fashion designer, he said quietly. She would have wanted someone like you to use it. Aisha's hands trembled as she touched it. She hadn't sewn in years. But something inside her stirred, the spark she thought had died. She started stitching again, first old clothes, then curtains, then school uniforms for the kids in Colonel's church. He never hovered, never imposed. Just encouraged her gently, praising her craft with quiet admiration. Zara blossomed too. Her eyes no longer held fear. She drew pictures of dresses and houses with gardens. She began calling Colonel uncle, then Baba. And Aisha, though cautious, began to hope. But trauma doesn't vanish overnight. One afternoon, while taking Zara to school, Aisha ran into Femi's younger brother. He laughed when he saw her in a faded Ankara dress, holding a sewing kit. "So this is what you've become," he sneered. "A roadside tailor and a charity case." She didn't reply. She just walked past him. But that night, she cried again, not from shame, but from the fear that maybe he was right. Later, a colonel found her on the back porch, shoulders trembling. "I'm not a real woman anymore," she whispered. "I have nothing. I gave my youth to a man who left me broken." He knelt beside her. "No. You gave your youth to a man who didn't deserve you. But you're not broken, Aisha. You're just beginning again. And it's okay to begin again." In that moment, her walls began to crumble. "Still," she asked, "why are you doing all this? What do you want from me?" He smiled, eyes soft. "I want nothing. But I believe in you. That's all." It wasn't love yet. But it was safety. And for someone who had spent years in a home where love meant silence and pain, safety was more than enough. She would learn to love again. But first, she had to learn to love herself. 6 months later, the small space behind Dr. Colonel's house had transformed into a humble tailoring workshop. The sound of scissors slicing fabric, the rhythmic hum of the sewing machine, and the gentle laughter of women filled the air. Aisha had started with one sewing machine and a few yards of fabric. Now 3 other women, all survivors of emotionally abusive relationships like hers. She named the space Irene Eo, Yoruba for Journey of Joy. It wasn't just a workshop. It was a sanctuary. Zara was thriving in school, her artwork now pinned across the walls of their living room. Colonel remained steady, never rushing her, never assuming. He cooked on Sundays, made silly jokes during dinner, and let her be. And slowly, Aisha's heart began to open to something deeper. Still, there were shadows. One afternoon, as Aisha prepared to speak at a local women's seminar, she stood frozen behind the curtain. Her name was about to be called. She had been invited to share her story, her pain, her healing, her rebirth. But the fear crept in again. Who was she to speak? She thought of her mother's voice, stern and traditional, marriage is for enduring, not for escaping. She thought of the neighbors who had looked away that day as she dragged her bags across the compound. She thought of Femi, who still roamed freely, unbothered. Then she felt Colonel's hand on her shoulder. "Speak your truth," he said. "There's power in it." She walked onto the stage. At first, her voice quivered. But then she told them about the day she was kicked out. The bench outside the locked shop. The stranger with warm tea. The first time her hands touched a sewing machine again. She shared the silent screams, the guilt, the shame, and how none of it was hers to carry. "And if you're sitting here today, believing you are small," she said, voice steady now, "I'm here to tell you, you are not. You are fire. You are rebuilding. And that is strength." By the time she finished, there were tears in many eyes. Women stood. Some hugged her. Others just nodded, holding their own pain quietly. Later that evening, sitting on the porch with Colonel and Zara, Aisha watched the sunset dip behind the distant rooftops. She rested her head on Colonel's shoulder, something she never imagined herself doing again. It wasn't just affection, it was a choice. A bold, healing choice. She thought about everything she had lost. And then, everything she had gained. Not money. Not status. But something deeper, dignity. Peace. Purpose. She had once been broken by a man who couldn't see her worth. Now, she was lifted by a man who saw it before she even remembered it existed. Her journey wasn't perfect. Her scars still lingered. But now they were reminders not of her weakness, but of her resilience. Because the truth is, being a woman in a world that tells you to stay silent is hard. But choosing to rise, to heal, and to speak. That's power. And she would never be silent again. Aisha's journey is a powerful reminder that even after the deepest pain, healing is possible, and sometimes, new beginnings come from the most unexpected places. What did you think of her story? Have you or someone you know ever experienced something similar? We'd love to hear your thoughts, your stories, or even just a word of encouragement for someone going through a difficult time. Drop a comment below, your voice might be the one someone else needs to hear today. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful, real-life African tales of resilience and transformation.